Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Interact podcast. My name is Josh Haynam. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Interact. Today, I'm joined by Audrey Saccone, who is a founder and a strategist and has worked on a variety of very cool quizzes. And so I wanted to chat with you live and just kind of talk through some of the quizzes that you've built. So first of all, thanks for being here. Second of all, I told you before we recorded, I'm just going to throw you right into the deep end and have you tell us about one of the quizzes that you've built, and we'll go from there. So kick it over to you.
Well, I mean, my first introduction to Interact was not with a quiz that I built per se, but one I inherited back when I worked for Marie Forleo, and she had a "What kind of entrepreneur are you?" And I don't even know the numbers, even if I could share them, but I just know that quiz really blew me away. Like I had always seen quizzes consumer side, whether it was like old school in the back of a magazine or, BuzzFeed style as like an end user. So to actually get to see how like a real quiz was playing out and how it converted into customers and just created really engaged leads was so fun. And I was like, oh, okay, I get why people do this and why there are so many quizzes out there.
Right? It's wild. And it's funny, I think it was 2016 or 2017 when we built it initially and you inherited it from there. But it's funny, I remember working on that one and it was one of the examples of like, wow, like this can really take off, especially
Yeah.
when it like strikes a nerve in a good way with the target audience. And I know you've been able to replicate that same experience of, really resonating with audiences across a variety of different verticals. Where else have you seen it work well outside of the like entrepreneurship business space?
I mean, we did a quiz about a year and a half ago with a client who is in the interior design space to help people find their interior design style. And she was launching an interior design focused course to help people decorate their homes in an affordable way. And one thing that she found, not only with her clients, but with people who were buying her programs and people she spoke to, you know, and we experienced this as well, like being a creative, working with like self described non creative people, is that a lot of people struggle to articulate what they like to see and what they like aesthetically. So a quiz was such a great way to show them, do you like this or that? It's like an eye exam, left or right, which one do you want? And then ultimately guiding them to, okay, this is your style, this is what it's called, and this is how you shop. So using a quiz as a way to help somebody identify something that they don't have language for is really empowering for the user, but also makes it so we can really personalize how we're selling to them on the back end.
Yeah, and something that came to mind as you were just saying that is I know you've worked with a lot of like really high profile people, and I'd imagine that one of the challenges is like how to help the followers or the customers of the high profile people connect well. Like
Mhm.
it can almost feel like there's this big divide, and it sounds like what you're saying is that a quiz can help kind of cut through that and make it a more like individualized personal interaction between like the brand or the creator and the people that are following.
Totally. And I actually really love using a quiz as a validator and as a way to make the user feel empowered and excited about something. There's nothing better than like, the first time you maybe read like an astrology report and you're like, oh my gosh, this totally describes me. And you just like, somebody put words to this thing about me. That a quiz has a power to do that as well, of making somebody feel really seen and recognized. And, then you can give them either like a semi customized path, or you could, just continue to sell to them from that. But it's very connective for something that can be done at scale.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the real power of it. If you can capture that effectively of like helping people feel connected to their results and then also being able to scale it because it's just built into the way the platform functions, it can scale. But in terms of like the actual way that you're communicating with those results and the things that you're telling people, what have you found to work really well that helps people to connect with it and feel like, oh, I resonate with this result that I'm getting?
Well, I think there's a lot of testing that goes into it and making sure that, the results make sense and that they actually match the personas that they're aligned with. But it's actually taking the time to really, make sure when I'm creating a quiz, I like to start from the end instead of starting from the beginning. So, what are the results and the type of people that I want to speak to? And then, like, what are the questions we're asking to help us suss that out versus going from question into result. And I think if you do it that way, you can really build it so that you're building to the type of people that you want to speak to and just create messaging that works for them and works for you and helps you just find your people as an attraction marketing tool.
Yeah, I like that the first thing you said was like experimenting and trial and error because I wish everyone listening could be like, that's the first thing that you do is just like try a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
Um, is it hard sometimes to like make that the reality, or maybe you're fully in control of the process? But I know sometimes it can be hard to kind of rally the troops to this idea of like, oh, we're going to try a bunch of things when people really prefer to like, oh, this is how you do it and it's exactly like this and we're not
mm,
going to change it. I think a lot of people would love it if that was reality, but it's not.
of
um,
course. Yeah. I mean, listen, me too. If somebody could give me a crystal ball and be like, this is the perfect set of answers, like, and I never had to test, I'd be a very, very happy girl. But, I think instead don't think about it as constantly split testing, but instead constantly iterating and constantly optimizing. It's if it's the same thing with like a fitness routine, right? You're not going to do the exact same fitness routine every single day, every single week. Like you're going to make it a little bit harder every couple weeks. You might throw in a new routine. Like you're always like, it's going to get stale if it's always the same. And everything in your marketing should be like that as well. You should always be iterating. They don't have to be big tweaks. They should just be little small bits and see like, okay, did that make a difference? If not, let's try a different direction.
Yeah, and I think it's like something that I have to be reminded of, where something that's really small or seems like a small change in your messaging or the way that you communicate something can make a huge difference. It's not necessarily like, oh, we
Mhm.
have all the wrong customers, or we have the wrong products, or we need to completely change things. It's sometimes just like you just need to say it in a different way, or you need to communicate it in a different way. And with a quiz in particular, because there's so many elements to it, like you got the results, you got all the questions, you got the answers to the questions, you got like the title and the way that it's framed, you got the images throughout. There's so many things that could be those variables. Are there any in particular that you've seen to like make the difference if you're experimenting with a quiz? Like, oh, the biggest bang for your buck is to change the title or the image or the results. Like, are there anything that you've seen as patterns there?
I wouldn't say there's a specific pattern. I think it depends on what the problem is. You know, if people aren't even clicking through, there's probably a title problem. If people aren't engaging after the fact, if they're not replying to follow up emails, if they're not buying something, there might be something wrong with your results. So, or if
Hmm.
people aren't resonating with their results, maybe there's an issue with the questions and the mapping that goes along with it. So, I think it's less about there being one magic bullet and instead being really tapped into what is or isn't working so that you can make the right changes to fix it.
Yeah, I like that framing. You start with what the problem is and
Mhm.
what are you actually trying to solve for, and then work backwards versus like, here's my quiz. How do I make it better? It's like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? And then how do we work backwards from there? Another question I had for you is, you mentioned the idea of like the personalization and the scaling, and obviously
Mhm.
we've entered the era of AI and ChatGPT. As people want that to be part of everything. Um, how do you see that coming alongside or complementing or morphing with the idea of a quiz? Because at least from the way I see it, just to frame up this question for you, like it's kind of hard to get an AI to be as specific with the results that
Mhm.
speak to people as it is if you just do it manually and then turn it
Mhm.
into a quiz where it maybe has like, let's say it has 8 different results, which is not as customizable as if an AI was giving you an infinite number of results, but people still connect with it better because it does target a specific like archetype.
Mhm.
Um, but obviously, with an AI, you could go to like a deeper level of personalization. Where do you see that all going from your vantage point?
I think AI lets us have more options and more results at the end of the day. Like I know a lot of the quizzes I've built or been a part of have maybe like 5 results, because from a bandwidth perspective and even a mapping perspective, if humans are building it, like that alone can be very complicated, but you can get as specific as something, like a Myers-Briggs level of number of questions and number of results when you're utilizing AI, that you can really tweak. If, user A answers this question one way, it kind of bumps them up to this version of the result versus a different one. So I think it does let us get a lot more specific, and it also lets us scenario test a little bit differently. So if you're using it as a way to define personas, you can say, okay, well, what are all the things that go into this persona? Here is customer research that I have of people who fit this persona. What are their challenges? How can I like craft questions or responses? Like, how might they answer a question like this? I think it gives you access to ingest and use a lot more data than if you were doing it by hand.
Yeah, I like that. And that's pretty much in line with how we see it fitting into our product roadmap in
Mm-hmm.
the longer term. It doesn't feel like it's in a place quite yet where it's reliable enough to
Yeah.
let people add it to quiz results. I think it would go off the rails a bit. But as it becomes more solidified, exactly what you just said is what we've been thinking about, where it's like, okay, you answered this set of questions, that fires off a specific AI prompt, and then that feeds the user back some sort of very hyper personalized, like not AI generated, but like AI assisted part of the results. It doesn't even have to be the whole thing. Like part of the result could be AI, part could be static. Um, so it's cool. It's cool that you're seeing that from your perspective. The other thing I was curious to hear from you is like whether it's specific to quizzes or just in general, what kind of trends are you seeing in terms of what audiences are responding to these days? We're in July of 2025 now. Um, and obviously, like talking about that example with Marie Forleo, right? That was back 2017, 2018. So yeah, we've both been around this for a long time. What are you seeing now in terms of like what people are liking, responding to? Like what are they actioning on? That kind of stuff.
I think people are craving more of that personalization. I think, people know that access to AI and access to more personalized responses is available, that if they feel like what they're getting is generic, they don't like it. So it's either it has to be super authentic and really coming from a human and they can really tell that, or if it's going to be any sort of AI assisted, it needs to be specific and customized to them. And yeah, it just like it has to feel personal, whether it's human made personal or computer made personal.
Right? Yeah, and like uh, tell me how you react to this statement, but I think that what that really means is like going through the stuff yourself. If you're like, let's just take like the anybody who's creating content, whether you're inside of an organization or you're on your own, like if it's from the perspective of like you went through a set of trials or a set of problems or a set of challenges or whatever it is, um, and you are creating from that perspective, that's that's like uniquely experiential versus if you are trying to, I guess this ties back to something we were talking about earlier. If you're trying to say like the best way to do something, then like chat gpt can tell you that because like it will
Yeah.
just aggregate all the answers and tell you the best way
Mhm.
according to the most people. What do you think about that as far as like that's how you differentiate.
Well, I think it's, you know, people either want to know, like, from your specific experience, to your point,
Mm-hmm.
or they want to know it from somebody who has worked broadly and from a lot of people, so somebody who's maybe a service provider or an agency owner, so I think it's from the personal standpoint of it, what is that specific unique experience and what can be learned from that, and how like real is the learning.
Mm.
Does it feel like it's been overly distilled down to be something that's so simplified and so pandered that you can't really get something from it? Or is it fully authentic and real and, maybe even a little unhinged, but you can learn something from it?
Mm. Do you think that that's the only way to be able to show up in that like authentic or genuine or whatever words you want to use way that does stand out now? Like you actually have to go through stuff yourself and then share from that perspective?
I think you have to go through something. People, audiences want something to relate to at the end of the day. I have a client who's in the corporate space, and she's a C-suite executive, and she's been doing this series of the like semi unhinged things that she did to get to where she is today. And I think, and some of them are out of the box, some of them are a little normal. Like, one of them that she shares today was that she like took up running and joined a run club when she was a contractor at Nike to connect with the people whose departments she wanted to ultimately hire her, and those sorts of things are the stories that people want to hear of, like, oh, there are, you know, non-traditional ways to get hired or to move through besides just applying for a job and being out into the void. So I think at the end of the day, audiences want real things to connect to. Like, they don't want theory. You can get theory in a textbook. People follow creators. Like, that's why I think creators and influencers are so popular right now, because they're actual real stories of things that actually worked or didn't.
That's a good point about creators rising in popularity because a lot of the things that are being talked about are the same concepts, right? Like how to do something, like how to accomplish something, but it's not being told from like here's the aggregated best way to do it. It's
Yeah.
being told from here's my story of how I was able to do the thing, and people just connect with that better than like this very average thing. And then if you kind of tie it back into quizzes, that's like, it's kind of like, I always like to say this, see what you think. I think it's like the ultimate test of this stuff because there's nowhere to hide. It's such a like unique and like personal and also like brief medium. Like you can't make the content really long. It has to be very brief, but it's also very story based. Like
Yeah.
you're trying to help somebody guide through their own story in the quiz.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's the pinnacle of this. Like, if you've conquered all the other challenges, then you can write a great quiz. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. And it's having something, a quiz can actually really help you connect more of that theory to real experiences, because you can use theory in your questions and in your maybe your initial results, and then use story to continue to nurture and drive that home, but send them the right types of stories for them.
Right. Yeah. Like it's a mixing of the science and the personal,
Mhm.
the formula and the story. Like you gotta weave it all together and then it makes this really nice thing. Because you're right. If it doesn't have a actual theory to the way the questions
Mhm.
are set up and the logic of it, then it won't be accurate at all and people will be like, this is a bunch of junk. But
Yeah.
if it doesn't have a story to it, if it doesn't have like a personal way of communicating with people with it, then they're not going to want to engage. It can't be just one or the other. It's got to be this like melding of the two. And it seems to me that the businesses and the creator businesses that are doing the best right now are doing that in general, right? Like
Mhm.
they are doing everything in their business based on a lot of frameworks, based on a lot of strategy, but then it's also showing up very personally, showing up very authentically. And that seems to be kind of the path through like this new wave of entrepreneurship.
Totally, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably a good place to wrap and like let people sit with that where it's like it helps with quizzes, it helps with everything else. Where can people go to check out your work and follow along with the stuff that you're creating?
Yeah, you can follow me at Audrey Saccone. I share myself about the business. You can also follow at Audrey Digital. I do not post there as often though, but yeah, come follow along. I share about what my clients are doing as well and what we're creating for them.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Audrey. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.